Hi, everybody. I'm Melinda Emerson, Small Biz Lady, America's #1 small business expert, and I'd like to welcome you to the Small Biz Chat podcast. Today's show is all about long-term thinking and planning for your business and your life, and we're going to go through some digital marketing too. We're also going to speak with a national leadership expert. We also have a healthy eating guru who's in the house, and she's going to help all of us get better at our self-care. And as busy business owners, that's tough to do. And digital marketing is complicated. So we're going to discuss how to get better results with your online marketing. My guests have some amazing insights to share. So if you've been interested in learning how to be more strategic, we have one of America's top thinkers here with us today. And if you've been struggling with your pandemic pounds, we have a vegan food expert here to share some insight. And if online marketing has become overwhelming, we've got an expert here who's going to share some digital marketing advice. And so you won't have to struggle anymore because you are in the right place, no matter what you've been dealing with. The Small Biz Chat podcast is a peer-to-peer interview show that gives small business owners a way to get invaluable business advice. The mission of Small Biz Chat is to end small business failure. The Small Biz Chat broadcast be seen on my Small Biz Lady Facebook page, as well as my YouTube channel. The goal of the Small Biz Chat podcast is to give our small business audience the opportunity to hear sage advice from multiple angles so that you can take your business to the next level. Now, today's guests are leadership expert Dorie Clark, and we have sales and digital marketing guru Seeley. He's helping businesses become more effective online. And we're going to talk with healthy eating expert Sheila Brown. She's going to share her inspirational story and her journey to natural weight loss. All right, it is time for me to introduce my very first guest, my dear friend Dorie Clark. She has been named one of the top 50 business thinkers in the world by Thinkers 50. She's a keynote speaker and leadership expert. She also teaches for the Duke University Fuqua School of Business. She's also the author of Entrepreneurial You, Reinventing You, and Stand Out, which Inc. magazine named the #1 leadership book of the year. And her latest book is The Long Game: How to Be a Long-Term Thinker in a Short-Term World. Now, for more information on her, just head over to DorieClark.com. Dorie, welcome to Small Biz Chat Live.
Hey, Melinda, I'm so glad to be here with you.
All right. So, I know your story, but everyone else doesn't. Give me your origin story. How did you become like America's leadership guru and a college professor to boot? Tell me how you got on this journey.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I think that my story is probably not dissimilar to many other small business owners. I had worked as a journalist and gotten laid off, and I had worked on political campaigns and they all lost, and you have to keep pulling yourself back up. And eventually I became a nonprofit executive director. And about a year into doing it, I had this revelation that running a small business was exactly the same thing as running a nonprofit was exactly the same thing as running a small business. And I thought I should be doing this for myself. So for the past 15 years, I have been self-employed and have just worked since then to continue being fortunate enough to get to do cool things, to consult and do executive coaching and hopefully continue reaching more people.
Awesome. So tell me something. I know that, in your books, you talk a lot about people confuse being busy for being important. And I wanted to start there because I just thought that was such a powerful concept, because for years, I've always said that people mistake busyness for business. And I think this is like kind of the same thing. These people that just want to go to networking events and keep talking to people, but they're not like making sales, like it's a problem. But I really this is a more strategic question than that, about, why people confuse these two concepts.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is important because just about everybody we know, just about every professional, every small business owner says, oh, wow, I wish I were less busy. And they point to the obvious culprits like meetings and emails and things like that, which is true. We all have too much of that. But in addition to it, as I was researching the long game, one of the pieces of research that I came across that I thought was most interesting is it turns out there are actually subtle, almost unconscious factors that are contributing to us being so busy. And one of them, according to research from Columbia University, is that especially in most Western cultures, busyness is viewed as a form of status. And so, if people say, oh, I'm so busy, I'm just overbooked. Well, people, you yourself are feeling important. People around you often view that as, oh, wow, she must be so in demand. And so emotionally, it actually is hard for us to take the steps necessary to stop being so busy, to get off the treadmill a little bit, because it's a blow to our ego. And so dealing with that is really important if we want to solve the problem.
I agree. So, what kind of strategies have you incorporated into your weekly schedule to maximize your time?
Yeah. So one of the most important things, and I've done this for a number of years, actually, and it's really become a fairly ingrained habit, is drawing on a framework that Paul Graham, the founder of the Silicon Valley incubator Y Combinator, has put forward. He talks about the difference between manager time and maker time. And manager time is the time that we all have to spend where we're supervising things, we're answering messages, we're having meetings, we're directing things. We've all got to do it. But in addition to that, he talks about maker time. And this is the deep work, important stuff. It's finishing that proposal finally. It's writing that article, whatever the things are that we often put off, but are really important. And so what I have come to realize is that if you try to combine manager activities and maker activities right next to each other, it usually doesn't work. And so I've separated out in my calendar manager days and maker days. Manager days, back to back, crazy. It's not that much fun, honestly. But what it enables is for me to have deep work maker days where I can really move the ball forward and get things done.
Interesting. I think I do something similar, but I don't call it that. But I set aside specific days for content development, and then I do my meetings, and I don't do a 30-minute meeting with anybody, more than 30 minutes with anybody. I don't care what it is. So those are some of the things that I do. But tell me about your new book, The Long Game. I mean, you've written a lot about, personal branding and reinvention. So tell me why you decided to do a book on how to, I loved your second, you said how to be a long-term thinker in a short-term world. Tell me about that, because I've done some reading and research about sort of like thinking fast and slow. And I was curious as to whether or not that research kind of informed what you're talking about here.
Yeah. So what you're describing, the research by Daniel Kahneman, the Nobel Prize winner, is, I think, really fantastic. He talks about decision science and how we make our decisions. And there's some really interesting insights there. I am talking about something I would say adjacent to it, which is the fact that I think all of us can recognize that so many of the pressures in our society today, which, is not helped by social media, is for short-term outcomes. We look around, and especially if you are a small business owner, and perhaps especially if you are a little newer to the game, you often look around and say, oh my gosh, everyone else seems to be getting there faster than I am. Am I doing the right thing? I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. Maybe I should be trying something else. Maybe I should be on YouTube. Oh no, maybe I should be on Clubhouse. And we get into this spiral. And as it turns out, many times it means we can actually never get traction at anything because you give up too quickly, when actually you should just be doing it a little more, doing it a little longer. And for the past 5 years, I've been running an online course and community called Recognized Expert for professionals that are looking to grow their platform, get better known, get their ideas out there. And so I have seen in a wide swath of folks, it's given me pretty good longitudinal knowledge and breadth of what the process looks like for people to really break through. And what I've seen is that so often that problem is that we just get whiplash because we never do anything long enough to really see the results. And I wanted to create a book and a framework for people with a long game so that they could really essentially be bucked up enough to persevere where they need to, and to be able to get through those really hard moments that almost all small business owners experience, where you're just not sure if it's not working or if it's not working yet, but you got to get through to the other side.
Interesting. So why do you think it's so much more difficult now than it was like even 10 years ago to sort of like think long term, if you will, instead of like these more like kind of transactional things you like kind of see people do?
Yeah, well, certainly short-term thinking. I mean, it's endemic to human nature. So it's been with us for a long time. But one thing that I thought was interesting as I was researching the long game, there was a fun quote that I came across from 100 plus years ago. It was from a satirist of the time named H.L. Mencken. And he said his quote, which I loved, was, "The true measure of success is making $100 more a year than your brother-in-law does." And it's perfect. And I thought, yes, but now the problem in 2021 is that it's not just your brother-in-law, it's everybody. We're comparing ourselves to everybody because we live in this global connected world with social media and all the images. And so we are constantly seeing images of success that kind of rattle us sometimes if things are not going as fast as we want. And the truth is, things never go as fast as we want. And so I really wanted to just address that. The truth is, things do take longer than we want, but the best things are worth working toward and working through those difficult times.
Well, just on that point though, don't you feel like social media has become like people's personal highlight reels? Like nobody, unless there's a death, nobody posts, "Hey, I starred in the super most terrible, worst day ever today. Let me tell you about that on social media." Like, I feel like people don't do that. Like whenever you see people, everyone's always posed perfectly for the picture. And you know what I mean? Like, what about that culture of feeling like you have to put on a happy face, even if there's not a happy face to be put on?
Yeah, absolutely. There's just so much of that. Even my mother was up visiting me this past week, and I was having a conversation with a group of people at dinner, and somehow it came up about like the fake Instagram influencers, and I'm like, oh my God, everybody's posing in front of their Lamborghini. So my mother takes out her phone and she starts clicking around, and then she holds up a picture of her next to a Lamborghini. I'm like, even you, Mama, even you.
Right. There are these rented cars that people want to take pictures in front of. I know it's really kind of scary. But one of the other things you talked about in your book is like, you said, how can we say no to good opportunities? And what else is involved in the process of thinking through, like you said, sometimes you got to say no to some stuff, even if it's a good opportunity. And I really wanted to walk down that road with you. Help me understand what you're talking about, Dorie. Is it the same thing as like all money ain't good money? Is that really what this comes down to? How are you teaching people here?
Right. Well, I think, Melinda, this is really where the strategy part of the strategic thinking comes in, because, most of us, it's not always easy to say no, even to a bad opportunity, because we might feel bad or, their feelings will be hurt. But most of us are at least smart enough to know, okay, that's a bad opportunity. I need to say no to it. But the problem that I have seen it time and again among successful people, and this is really the challenge, is at a certain point, if you get successful enough, a lot of good opportunities are going to come to you. That's amazing, but it's still a problem because you don't have time for all of them. And if you actually want to enable your strategy, the things that you have made choices about, and you said, yes, this is where I want to make my mark, not here, not there, here, you have to make choices that enable you to have enough time and energy and effort to put toward your goal and your vision, not somebody else's. And that means, unfortunately, sometimes even saying no to good things. And we're not in that habit. When you're 22 years old and, nothing's coming to you anyway, you see a good opportunity, you're like, fantastic, I'll do it. But you can't keep doing that once you've become successful. You have to make the hard choices.
Well, what was a turning point in your career where you really felt like it just wasn't in your best interest to say yes to so much stuff? Like, I'm assuming you came up with this because it happened to you, right?
That is true. Yes. I had an experience, and I write about this in the long game, where a friend reached out to me And she wanted to know that she sent this email. And my first reaction was, oh my God, this sounds incredible. And then I walked it back and I started thinking about it. She was part of an organization that had decided that they wanted to invite me to be a speaker at a conference they were having in the Caribbean. And would I be interested? They would pay for my trip and my hotel to the Caribbean. And on one hand, I thought this was amazing. But then I realized, wait a minute, you got to think about this, Dorie, because first of all, a question you always have to ask yourself is what is the total cost of this? How does this factor in? And I could technically have done it, but looking out, I was going to be traveling the week before. I was going to be traveling the week after. This is obviously pre-COVID. And I thought, oh my gosh, 3 weeks on the road. I'm going to be so exhausted. Will I even enjoy it? That sounds kind of intense. Then, of course, this was an unpaid trip. They would have paid for my expenses, but they were not going to pay me. And I thought, well, that's nice, but it's a vacation. But would I choose to spend my vacation like that? I don't know. Maybe I would have done something else. And then I realized, actually, the biggest attraction was just getting to spend time with my friend. But I thought, she lives in my city. I can actually just invite her for dinner and I don't have to go to Grand Cayman in order to see her. And so ultimately I said no, even though it would have technically been a good opportunity, but going through that thought process made me realize we all have to get a little smarter about this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So tell me, when you say that everyone needs to build a life portfolio, what is that?
Yes. So when it comes to investing, investing your income, almost everybody knows the basic idea of like, okay, don't put all your money in one stock, right? Where if you know one thing, you know that. It's like, okay, diversify. That's great. But the problem is that so often in our own careers, we are not doing this. And so there's the high chance, if you don't diversify properly, that if you are doing something, some particular service that you're providing, or you're providing services or products to a particular audience, something might change in the marketplace and it begins to put you at risk. And so what I like to suggest, and I have a whole section in the long game about this, is that we essentially need to think about what we do with our businesses and with our careers as being a portfolio where there's the bonds that are nice and safe and steady, but there's also the risky and more experimental things. And so I talk about applying Google's 20% time concept, where you spend up to a fifth of your time on something that, really might not work. It's very experimental. We need to be doing this ourselves and choosing to develop this in our own careers, in our own businesses, because that's what enables us to stay on the cutting edge and to be exploring things enough so that if the market changes, we are not unprepared for it.
I love it. I love it. Well, listen, we're going to take a break. And when we come right back, we're going to talk more with Dorie Clark about thinking long-term in a short-term world. I'm Melinda Emerson, the Small Biz Lady. You're watching the Small Biz Chat podcast live, and we'll be right back.
People always ask me, how can I become my own boss? With multiple features in the New York Times, Forbes, and on ABC News as America's #1 small business expert, I know a thing or two about how to do it. Hi, I'm Melinda Emerson, Small Biz Lady, and I've been coaching small business owners since 2008. That's right, I've been helping small business owners plan for success since the last recession, and I'm still here reaching over 3 million small business owners a week online. I've spent the last 12 years compiling exactly what I did to become my own boss. I even broke it down into a 6-step system in my best-selling book, Become Your Own Boss in 12 Months. Over 100,000 people in multiple languages around the world have this book, and due to the pandemic, I know people need help. If you're ready to transition successfully from being an employee into your own business, I'm here to help. I'm giving away 1,000 copies of Become Your Own Boss in 12 Months for free. All you need to do is pay for shipping. That's right, I'm giving away 1,000 copies for free. If you've always wanted to start your dream business, let me give you a roadmap to success. This offer will only be available while supplies last, and when they're gone, they're gone. Click on the button to grab your copy today.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Small Biz Chat podcast. We've been talking with Dorie Clark about her brand new book, The Long Game. All right, Dorie, tell me, what are career waves?
Yes, Melinda. So one of the things that I have seen talking to a lot of small business people and entrepreneurs, where they get frustrated sometimes, they feel like, I'm working so hard, but I'm not making the progress I want. What's wrong? And almost always what I have discovered is that they are not thinking in waves, which is a concept I talk about in The Long Game. So in our career waves, we really need to realize that there's a time to focus your energy on doing one particular type of thing, but then you can't keep doing it forever. You have to shift and move on to the next phase. And so what I identify in The Long Game is 4 key phases. The first is the learning phase, where you're just acclimating. In my case, when I was starting my business, I was a maniac, reading books, taking workshops, just figuring out the lay of the land. I think we all have to get there. The second phase is what I call sharing and creating, because that's where you have to start putting your own stuff out there. Get your products out there, get your ideas out there. People need to see what you can do. The third wave is connecting, because you have to build your community. It's a community of customers. It's also a community of collaborators and peers that you work with and fellow business owners. And then finally, it's the reaping phase, which is where you're humming along, you're pretty successful. Now you can enjoy it, and you should enjoy it. But here's the key. You can't stay there forever either, even though it's nice. You need to circle around and start learning again, or we stagnate.
I could not agree more. What an interesting metaphor. So can you explain the distance to empty concept?
I certainly can. Yes. So distance to empty, that's a phrase that some people will know from watching their gas tank in their car. We see, this many miles to empty. And my friend Dave Crenshaw, who is a time management and productivity expert that I profile in The Long Game, talks about this. As business owners and entrepreneurs and small business owners, we often work crazy, ridiculous hours. And we know it's a problem, but we don't really know what to do about it. And so I loved Dave's formulation. And what he says is just like distance to empty, where you can actually see, I've got this many miles to go before I have to get gas. He says, where we often go wrong, let's say we're working till 9 o'clock at night. That's no good. We know it's no good. And so you vow, well, tomorrow I'm going to stop at 5. Well, that's not very practical. That's probably not going to work. And so Dave says we need to ratchet it back slowly and steadily so that we can continue to be aware of what is our distance to empty, and slowly and steadily be able to make the right choices so that we can get the lifestyle that we want. But it's a slower process. We can't do it overnight, or it's going to blow up and it's not going to work.
I think that's really, really good advice. All right, Dorie, what is the best business advice you ever got?
The best business advice I ever got. And thanks to COVID, I think, Melinda, the world caught up with me. But it was, gee, Dorie, you don't really need to have an office. You can save a lot of money by working from home.
I love it. All right, where can we get your book, The Long Game?
Thank you so much. The best way that people can find out about my work, get The Long Game self-assessment, free strategic thinking self-assessment. Just go to DorieClark.com/longgame.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much, Dorie, for being here. I always enjoy talking to you. All right. When we come right back on the Small Biz Chat podcast, we're going to be talking about digital marketing. It's complicated. So I got an expert here who's going to break down how you can be a lot more effective with it. Stay with us.
Is now the right time to start a business? This is the second most frequently asked question people always ask me, along with how can I become my own boss? And they aren't wrong for asking, because right now, these are the two most important questions anyone whose job security has been recently impacted is wondering. Hi, I'm Melinda Emerson, better known as Small Biz Lady. And when it comes to small business success, I've been featured multiple times on MSNBC and CNBC and ABC News as America's #1 small business expert. Since the last recession in 2008, I have helped many small business owners plan for success, and I'm still here, reaching 3 million entrepreneurs each week online. I've created a system that will teach you exactly how to become your own boss. I broke it all down into a 6-step system in my best-selling book, Become Your Own Boss in 12 Months. It's the exact roadmap to help you successfully transition from having a job to being your own boss. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, many folks are suffering, and I want to do my part to help. I'm giving away 1,000 copies of my book for free. All you need to do is cover the shipping. If you have always wanted to start your dream business, let me give you a roadmap to success. Take advantage of my free offer while supplies last. Click the button below to grab yours before they're all gone.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Small Biz Chat podcast. I'm Melinda Emerson, Small Biz Lady, and I'm your host. You can always find this show on my Small Biz Lady Facebook page, or you can check us out on YouTube. And don't forget to follow me on TikTok. I'm the Small Biz Lady over there. So help me out. Give me some love over on TikTok. Now it's time for me to get to my next guest. His name is Andy Seeley, and he is a master in sales and digital marketing, having led a number of companies and helped clients achieve success. Andy leads a team of digital marketing mavens as the CEO and co-founder of his firm, Creatively Disruptive. Andy's previous experiences have taken him from retail to the publishing world. In addition to his role as CEO, he actively mentors other business owners. For more information about him, you can check him out at creativelydisruptive.com. Andy, welcome to the Small Biz Chat podcast.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Excited.
All right. Where is that accent from? What is your origin story? How did you get to the United States?
It's a deep, deep Southern accent. It's originally New Zealand, and I arrived here in 1999, April 1999, and met a girl. I was supposed to be here for 6 months, and met a girl, and 22 years later, I'm still, she's now my wife, and I'm still here. Supposed to be on my way to England. It was like a 6-month stop off in the United States, and it turned into a 22-year one.
Okay, well, hey, nothing will make you stay longer than the girl of your dreams. That's for sure.
Exactly.
So tell me, how did you become a sales and marketing guru?
I think it's not something that you kind of like decide to do. I think it's more of a communication thing, right? So I think one of my first jobs, I don't like using my hands. I have very, very like nice little hands that don't have many calluses and stuff on them. So sales probably is the best place to go. My first job ever actually was a car sales guy. My dad ran a car dealership, and I actually sold some cars. I didn't really do very well, and I wasn't very excited about it. But then I got into sports science with a focus on team development and team building. And I learned that sales or convincing or bringing people along on your plan and understanding what you're trying to accomplish is a real critical part of team building and leading a team. I do believe anybody who's a CEO needs to have an element, any successful one has to have an element of sales and gift of the gab to be able to communicate effectively what the vision is and what your mission is. I've led, my first real job in the United States was working for CarMax as a sales manager. And obviously I learned a lot of stuff from their processes way back in the day. This is like in the early 2000s when CarMax was still kind of like getting their feet, and Circuit City was still around, which Circuit City owned them back then. And then I got into some sales training with an amazing sales training process that was all about consultative communication, which basically helped people convince themselves that they needed to do business with you rather than you convincing them of anything, just helping them through, like consulting them like a psychiatrist through to the decision that you wanted. And
Sure.
And it's just grown through all the different businesses that I've run and operated. And I see it as a critical part of just success, regardless of whether or not you're trying to sell a product. Communicating and explaining yourself in a way that gets people's buy-in, I think, is critical.
I agree. So a lot has changed about online marketing, right? Especially since the pandemic. Everybody's buying everything online. I mean, even my mom, like, we use Instacart now to get groceries, which is like amazing. So tell me how that has complicated things for, the small business owners that are still trying to sort of like finish their digital pivot, if you will.
I actually think the pandemic was the best thing that ever happened to online marketing. I think it's, if you want to call the pandemic a good thing in any way, it's really forced a lot of people because, when we were locked down, when we were stuck in our houses, when we couldn't move, our connection with the world, or sometimes our way of getting our groceries, was through online. And we decided, funnily enough, last year, as one of our small business niches that we wanted to try to see if we could do well at, and it was a little bit of a challenge for my team, was I said to the team, I want to work with California-based restaurants, right? During the pandemic, that might seem like a crazy thing, but the reality is those restaurants that we worked with, and we ended up working with about 10 of them, all of them did very well with their takeout, and they never did takeout. And they would argue that takeout business that we were able to generate for them kept their heartbeat going, whilst they, the majority of their revenue was closed down due to, being closed. And, I think basically if you're not online right now, you're not being seen. Back in the day, right, you'd see, AAA 111 carpet care. And the reason why people would name themselves that is they wanted to be on the first page under carpet care in the yellow pages. Google, in a very real sense, is our new yellow pages. If you're looking for something like Melinda, you break out your phone, you probably Google it, right? Sure. And so if you're not there, you're not going to be seen. And I would say right now, the pandemic, if anything, especially with e-commerce, our e-commerce clients doubled, tripled, one of them 10 times their revenue during the pandemic. Our clients that were more brick and mortar based, obviously they struggled because the majority of their revenue was through brick and mortar, was through live interaction with people. But the ones that pivoted to actually find a way to actually produce an online product actually did much better than those that didn't. And more importantly, when they reopened, it was like a springboard to get that business back on top quickly.
Mm-hmm. So what about like B2B folks? Is it just about LinkedIn? Like what's your B2B folks? Because they're used to going out, calling on customers, having these sort of like, introductory meetings where they're listening and finding out the problem. I mean, what are those guys, how has online, really changed for them?
I would say business to business. I'll give you ourselves as an example. We're B2B, right? Our clients are small businesses, our clients are e-commerce, our clients, our businesses. We get probably 95% of our incoming inquiries, and we don't do a lot of cold outreach through Facebook and Instagram. And the reason why that works is the targeting system and audience building that you can do on Facebook and Instagram. Melinda, you're on Instagram, right? You're on Facebook. Sheila probably is, Dorie is. Most people who are running and operating companies have some kind of Instagram or Facebook account, and I can put my message in front of them every time you go on there just to, tickle you up and get you excited about working with us. And, LinkedIn, I think there's still got a little way to go where it will work for everybody. With certain types of businesses, I think it's quite effective. But, I mean, the beauty of Facebook is the flexibility and the content-driven marketing that it is in a very real sense that can really build a brand and really build a sense of what that company is all about. And so from a business-to-business standpoint, I love Facebook and Instagram done correctly.
Excellent. So tell me about how you suggest that people make their website into a conversion machine.
So think about your audience. I think a lot of people get into the weeds when they're trying to please everybody. You want to please a specific niche, a specific group. You have a lot more success with that, and then build your content around that group and how they speak and how they want to be, what they want to see and hear, right? The best clients that we have are very specific and they speak the language of the audience that they're trying to win. the clients that we, or the people that we end up not working with, which, you know, the incoming inquiries where there's somebody who started a drop shipping account or something, and are selling tire irons next to car audios, next to, you know, lingerie, next to cooking equipment. They struggle because there's too many audiences, too many people, too many different ways of communicating that you need to put together. So I would say, think about your niche, think about who the audience is, good copy that inspires, good copy, good content that inspires that specific audience. I think being audience centric is probably the magic sauce.
I love it. I love it. All right. So I'm going to give you 7 marketing terms, and I want you to rank them in order of importance, and I want you to tell me why. All right.
Each one.
So I'm going to say, all right. So I'm going to give you SEO, website, content, social media, email, mobile, and online ads.
So SEO is a difficult one. SEO is very different. It's changed over the years. SEO to me is just a well-built website. So I'm going to put that a little bit further down on the category list. I would say I would lead with probably content. If you're not actually speaking the language of your audience, if you're not actually have something that people are interested in, if you're not presenting it in a way that's going to excite them, the rest of it's going to struggle, right? So you kind of like need to make sure that you've got your, and when I say content, that's photography, that's your copy, that's the way you present it, all of that good stuff. Second up, I would say making sure that it's very mobile operated, so very mobile friendly. For good or for bad, we're all on our phones walking into brick walls as we're walking on the street. We're walking and falling into you know, manholes and so forth. But we're on our mobile phone. If you're not executing well on mobile, you're struggling. So I'd probably put mobile next. I would say your website would probably be third on that list. And obviously that would be a mix of mobile and, you know, website friendly, you know, desktop friendly and so forth. Making sure that the website is well put together and fills people with confidence. Confidence is massive. People, if you're going to ask somebody to give you your credit card number or give you a data, they need to trust where that is and if that's correct. So I'd say website. Probably in there would be, and it would probably be in the website would be SEO, but from the point of view of a well-built website that the engines are going to like and do business with would be there. Then I'd probably go with social media, online ads, you know, social media and online ads. I kind of like think of it kind of works hand in hand. Online ads, what I love about online ads is it's a way to turn on, you know, for us to focus. One of the beauties of online ads nowadays is our ability, especially with Facebook and Instagram, is how accurately we can go after the correct audience. So all of the rest of it works best. I can drive 100,000 of the same kind of person that is really interested in Melinda. It's going to make it much more likely that you get conversions, right? Rather than me just driving 100,000 people that don't know anything about you and aren't interested. That's not going to drive conversions. So online ads, I would say, would kind of be online ads, social media because you kind of need to be on there. If you're not on there, you're not being seen. It's the billboard. It's the cheapest billboard for a small business to be a part of, if I'm honest with you. And that's kind of where most small businesses are making their money, I would say, on social media with online ads. I don't think you generate sales without that online ad component. If I'm honest with you, you need to be getting those like consistent online sales through your online ads. And then, you know, the email, you know, and I don't want email to be diminished because email is really important from an ongoing relationship standpoint. And in reality, it's kind of like a mixture. We don't do business with customers just doing their Facebook ads. Mm-hmm. We typically will do Facebook ads, Google ads, email marketing, and conversion rate optimization, which is really the new SEO. And we have them all working together, and they work as a machine that actually can produce massive results. I would always urge people to not just do, say, Google ads without Facebook ads. Google ads is like can pour high intent clients, and Facebook ads can capture them and continue the relationship. So there's a whole machine that you need to build. So all of them are very important, but that would be my ranking.
Okay, well, I think that's helpful. Right before we go to break, I got to ask you, short form video, I think, is like starting to take over social media. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, video, full stop, long form or short form. Short form because a lot of the platforms are rewarding that kind of stuff, which means the algorithm is going to give you a little bit more love. But also people just I mean, I wish it was different. I love long form conversations. I'm a bit long-winded oftentimes, but the reality is, especially on our cell phones, I'm prepared to give you 15 seconds, right? So yeah, you're absolutely right. I think it's a game changer. And if you can distill what you're trying to get across in 15 seconds in lots of different creative ways, I think you have an advantage.
All right. Well, listen, I have really been enjoying talking to you, Andy. When we come right back, we're going to talk more about, does everybody need ads? So I'm Melinda Emerson, the Small Biz Lady. You're watching the Small Biz Chat podcast, and we will be right back.
Hi, I'm Melinda Emerson, Small Biz Lady, and I'm known as America's #1 small business expert. I know a thing or two about how to run a successful business. I've been running my own for over 20 years, and I'm often asked, how do I actually become my own boss? It starts with knowing what you want and why. Then you need to figure out how you'll fund your dream business. Next, you must research your idea and make sure you understand everything that's involved. Next, you must determine your target customer, then complete your business plan. And finally, it's time to start your business as a side hustle first, if you can. I wrote my best-selling book, Become Your Own Boss in 12 Months, to give you a roadmap to business success. And over 100,000 people in multiple languages around the world have been helped by this book. And now, to support people affected by this pandemic, I'm giving away 1,000 copies of Become Your Own Boss in 12 Months for free. All you need to do is pay the shipping and handling fees. If you're ready to turn your calling into income, claim your free copy of my book today. Don't delay. This offer is only good while supplies last. Click the button below and get yours before they're all gone.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Small Biz Chat podcast. I'm here with my guest, Andy Seeley, and we're talking digital marketing. All right, Andy, you made a comment a few minutes ago that I have to call you out on. All right, you said that you're really not going to make sales online unless you're doing ads. So are you saying everybody needs to be buying ads? Is that what are you standing on your platform and saying that?
It's about consistency. For me, I'm not into I'm going to make 100,000 this month, and then I'm okay with making 20,000. If we get you to 100,000, we want it to be the month. We want it to be 110 the month after, 120 the month after. It's about scaling and consistency. And what we see about online ads is our ability to constantly flow a audience into our machine, right? And to build our email lists, to make sure we've got that traffic on our pages, having a mixture of Google ads and Facebook ads. So Google is bringing the high intent active seeking something right this moment, and Facebook being able to remarket and capture that audience and keep it in your system for up to like 6 months and keep recycling until they buy from you. You're only going to be able to start using those parts of those platforms if you pay. Unfortunately, you to be able to use the true strength of those platforms, you got to pay. That's how they pay their people, right? Google wants you to pay, and that can lead to tremendous consistent results. And when you say everybody need to, we have clients from little ballerina dance schools that just want to have 120 kids involved to it, all the way up to multi-million-dollar online, e-commerce clients that are doing, $1 million, $2 million a month in revenue, and all of them are benefiting from it. And the difference is the e-com guy, when he's maybe starting out and testing, he's got to be spending $100 a day or whatever. The little ballerina they only want to market to a little 5-mile radius around you, which you can do with Google and Facebook and Instagram. They only maybe need to spend $10 to $20 a day to get things going. And it's about getting that interest and getting things going. You got to think to yourself, where do people spend most of their time? And most people aren't watching TV. They're not looking at coupon books. They're spending it on Facebook, Instagram, and Google. That's where 95% of the eyeballs are, right? And my wife, I remember, once said to me, do you think social media is kind of like the new referral kind of system? And I'm like, as in, that's the way people can share information and share, hey, look at this cool thing that I've got, or hey, here's a really cool business. I'm like, absolutely, that's basically what it is. And it allows us to have some absolute control over our destiny. Most small businesses, I'll wrap it up with this one. Most small businesses say to me when they begin, oh, I do really good referrals. The best form of advertising is a good referral from a good customer. And I'm like, great, but you're playing in the same pool. What are you doing to build that pool? The way to build that pool is with digital paid advertising, in my mind.
All right, Andy, what's the best business advice anyone's ever given you?
The best business advice anybody's ever given me would be to never give up. You lose when you give up, right? You can re-strategize, you can pivot, you can change, but don't give up. The moment you lose is when you give up. I've seen so many businesses do the proverbial digging in the coal mine and are that far away from the diamonds, and they give up because it's just too hard. When if they just stayed at it a little bit longer, worked at it a little bit harder, they would have broke through. And I don't know anybody that's successful that hasn't had tremendous difficulties that they've had to overcome at some point. And the difference between those that were successful and those that weren't were the ones that just decided, I'm going to knuckle down and I'm not going to give up. I'm going to push through.
Absolutely. All right, Andy, thanks so much. Hang tight. We're going to call you back up here in just a minute. But when we come back, we're going to talk with a healthy eating coach about how all of us can lose some of these pandemic pounds. I'm Melinda Emerson, the Small Biz Lady. You're watching the Small Biz Chat podcast, and we will be right back.
I just finished presenting to over 2,000 small business owners who jumped on my webinar on how to become your own boss in these uncertain times. I partner with top brands including Verizon, American Express, and Chase to educate small business owners across the country. In today's webinar, I taught my 6-step system to start a business. I also taught them how to establish a disaster-proof plan to turn their calling into income. We talked about how to find the people they want to serve online. I know how to help you make money as a boss. I've spent the last 12 years compiling exactly what it takes to become your own boss. I even broke it down into a 6-step system in my best-selling book, Become Your Own Boss. Over 100,000 people in multiple languages around the world have this book. And due to the pandemic, I know people need help. If you're ready to transition successfully from being an employee to becoming your own boss, listen carefully. I'm giving away 1,000 copies of my book, Become Your Own Boss, for free. All you need to do is pay for shipping. That's right, I'm giving away 1,000 copies. This book is going to show you how to become your own boss, create a pandemic-proof plan, and launch a successful business. Don't delay. This offer is only available while supplies last.
Hi, everybody. This is Melinda Emerson. And now to my favorite part of the show, we're going to talk about the personal stuff. We're going to talk about how I can stop eating all this bad food and how I can get these pandemic pounds off. And I've got an amazing healthy eating expert with us today. Her name is Sheila Brown, and she's going to talk to all of us how we can achieve optimal physical health. She is on a mission to change common thinking around soul food and encourage people to embrace the vegan lifestyle. If only she could get me to give up bacon. Anyway, she's a healthy eating coach who helps her clients with their weight loss struggles and triumphs. And she confronted her own issues with food and spirituality that forced her to address anxiety and issues she had in her own life. She speaks with women and helps them to identify and address their own anxieties and issues connected with food and their bodies. And she's also the author of Something Raw, Sometimes Cooked, Always Divinely Prepared, 21 Vegan Dishes to Inspire Daughters of the Most High to Eat Healthy. All right, Sheila, how are you? Thank you so much for being here on the Small Biz Chat podcast.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I am so delighted to be here with you.
All right. So tell me, how did you get into the health and wellness business? What sparked your interest?
You know, it was something that occurred naturally. I am not the likely kind of person to find myself being what I call a divine life strategist and a divine health coach. I am an attorney by trade. I've done strategic planning for behavioral health organizations. And, I managed bookstore before that. But one of the things that kept reoccurring in my life that I always kind of now looking back associated with a tremendous amount of stress that I was experiencing in my life, just trying to figure out business, trying to figure out my next move, trying to figure out parenting and balance it all, was that I never put my health at the forefront. It just wasn't even an issue for me. I had no cognitive relationship between myself and the food that I was eating. Everything was just go, 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 go. And food, weight, those were things that were on the back burner for me. And I think the younger I was, it was okay to get away with it. I kind of just, in the course of moving through life, was able to keep my energy up. But as I got older and hit my late 30s, my early 40s, and things started to become more intense with my body, I started to realize that, wait a minute, not only am I over 300 pounds, I just wasn't even aware of it because I was always told and felt attractive in my clothing. And I just, didn't need to pay much attention to it, but I was also feeling symptoms that no longer could be ignored. I felt like I was having heart palpitations. I was having these symptoms like a nagging pain shoulder, and cumulatively, they were becoming so problematic for me that I just couldn't ignore it anymore. And I ended up reaching out to someone for help. And before experiencing that, I realized that, looking back at things, I was actually on the verge of a heart attack. A lot of times women have the symptoms of a heart attack, and it appears in their shoulder or in their arm. I think it's particularly their left arm. I was having this nagging sensation. And then I was always sweating profusely. Even if I just got up to go to the restroom, I had an extremely sedentary lifestyle. And then one day something happened. I came to the conclusion that, this isn't just about looking good in clothes or not looking good in clothes anymore. This is actually affecting my heart, my knees, my arteries. Everything was screaming at me to pay attention to this important part of life. It was the key to life itself. And it had a lot to do with my unhealthy relationship with food. So fast forward to 2016. I'm at this point of no return, and I come across a documentary called Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. And I see this guy who's over 300 pounds like me, and he goes through a 60-day juice fast. And at the end of that 60 days, he comes off with 90 pounds. And I said to myself, oh my God, is that all you have to do to lose 90 pounds? Like, I can do that. So fortunately, I had already had invested in a juicer. I had talked with a health consultant who made me aware that I actually had some food allergies. And I did a 60-day juice fast. I started it on March 21st or 22nd of 2016. And 60 days later, I was 57 pounds lighter, 10 or 12 dress sizes down. And I felt like a whole new human being again. It just completely changed the way I did. Now, the 60 days, I didn't realize it, but I had actually been vegan for 60 days. And so the foods that I was juicing, which were pretty much just green foods, I began to eat them. I ate them raw and I ate them cooked. That's the name of my cookbook, sometimes raw, sometimes cooked, always divinely prepared. Now, the divinely prepared piece comes in because there was a strong connection between my sense of purpose, what I call divine purpose, and my sense of spirituality that I started to not only associate with food, but with weight and everything else that I was doing. So I had realized that with all of the weight, not only did my energy come down, but my motivation came down. I did not have the desire to confront and tackle life's challenges. I didn't have the desire to express creativity. And I was just functioning in this kind of fog that allowed me to just get up and go to work, come home, stuff myself over the weekend, and just fall asleep into this kind of like coma until Monday again, where I dreaded the entire experience. And so my decision to do something about it was first a huge challenge because of that first weekend of my juice fast, where I had to come, what they call it in the Black community, a come to Jesus experience, where I really, really had to confront the fact that I was either going to fail completely at life and die, or I was going to overcome this unhealthy relationship I had with food. And it was the weekend for me that made all the difference, because everything got silent over the weekend. During the week, the juicing was great. I was moving around, working, going from one job to the next, making moves, making phone calls. I didn't notice that I wasn't eating like usual, but the weekend came, and with the weekend came loneliness, silence, and the realization that I was embarking on something I had never attempted to do before. And over the weekend, what I would normally do would just stuff myself, watch a movie, get in the bed, and not really come out until it was time to get my next scoop of food. And I was kind of living this existence and not even realizing it. But when I went to do my normal habit, which didn't involve a lot of creativity or movement for me, I instantly realized that, wait a minute, I've got a problem. If I think I'm going to get through this night without being able to have popcorn and ice cream and yogurt and soda, and I had a nervous breakdown that night. If anyone had witnessed it, it probably would have looked like to an outsider that I was having a out-of-body experience with a demonic spirit. I mean, it was just really, really bad for me. It was shaking, it was crying, it was this loneliness that I realized I never had to confront before, because I could popcorn it away with a sound of popcorn, with a crunch of popcorn. It was like a conversation that I didn't have to have in my head. I had, the kiss of a yogurt to romanticize me into almost a sexual experience with chocolate that could compensate for anything that smooth kiss with yogurt or ice cream couldn't compensate. And I had, the savoriness of spicy foods. And then I realized that I created a habit out of cooking, but it really wasn't a desire to be cooking. It was a desire or a need to constantly be finding ways to justify the eating that I was doing. And so when I did that weekend through the juice fast, the only thing that allowed me to succeed was me drawing on my strategic planning experiencing and being able to visualize myself achieving the outcome, right? Which is something that I used to do with my clients, and realizing that, wait, Sheila, remember that 90 pounds? That's on the other side of this, and just talking myself through that. But it was like, how you have that sense that there's a demon on one side and a God on the other side. It was a pool, and I was in a fight for my life. And out of it, I realized I'm not the only one going through this. I'm not the only one dealing with loneliness at a spiritual, mental, financial, economic, political, and social levels. And so I began to find other women who were situated much like me, which was a lot of women that I found from the African-American experience, but women from a range of experiences were going through something similar. And so out of those things, I started paying attention and collecting data about my own experiencing, codifying it, and analyzing those experiences. And then I actually created a course about how to overcome emotional eating and how to switch to a vegan diet and how to, incorporate more vegetables and fruit in your diet, even if being vegan isn't the desired outcome that you have. So it was really drawing on my own personal experiences with spirituality, with strategic planning, and with my desire to live beyond where I was and do better. And out of it, there came that sense of divine purpose. Like, wait a minute, now that I've got all this energy, I've got to do something with it again. And, my first book came out of it, Divinity Soup, which is where I wanted to incorporate a more soulful experience with my food. It was okay initially to just, steam some vegetables and, juice. But then there was my grandma's soul food, kitchen experience that I was missing out on. And so I took what I knew about health and nutrition at that point and combined it with some things that I had learned about how to make my food savory, how to replace the pork with a smoky essence using natural ingredients and herbs and spices and all these other little tricks. And so I took all of those things that I learned, combine them into my first free ebook, which I call Divinity Soup and Ancestor-Inspired Recipes starring collard greens, which is a staple in the Black community, collard greens. And I just, went on from there and started talking with people, getting radio communications with people, and people were just interested in my story. And I just eventually wrote a year later my first book, which was Sometimes Raw, Sometimes Cooked, Always Divinely Prepared, which was basically allowing me to show people what I did on a daily basis with my food, with recipes, to take my 300-pound body down 135 pounds, and then finally figure out what was the right weight, because there was so many things that had changed about my body over that 18-year period where I gained so much weight. Things had changed, my bone structure had changed. And so what I thought was my desired weight was no longer suitable for me. So I found my happy weight, my more suitable weight for my body. And then I just said, okay, well, how do I maintain that with foods? And so I wrote that book to show the recipes that sustain me, that keep me going. And they're gluten-free, they're vegan, but they're delicious. And so some of them are keto friendly. Like I have an amazing keto friendly bread. I have some chocolate chip cookies. I have a whole bunch of great things. So that's kind of the journey for me of how things got started. And it's been such a journey from there. So it's more spiritual and mental for me, but it's just a great and joyous experience when I do find people who want to know what I did and how they can start the journey to what I call divine health as well.
Wow, you have really given me so much. There's so many questions I wanted to ask you, and you hit like everything. But so I do want to ask you though about how you maintain it, and what do you do with people like me that are like addicted to bacon? So I think, what I wanted to ask you about was, what about the dieting? Like, do you believe in keto? Like, is that okay? Or, or are you really looking at some of, or are you really just kind of like, no, everybody just needs to eat healthy, the diet thing just like kind of doesn't work? Or is it really just about, you really have to change your whole lifestyle?
That's a loaded question. And I have like 3 different approaches to that question that I would love to take in that segment, but we don't have time for it. But what I will say is that all diets work. Really, they all do, but they don't work well for everybody, right? So in my journey, I've done some keto. And then I've done some intermittent fasting, and then I've done some, I'm always doing vegan, but, I've done different things and variations of different things. And it just depends on what's really going on in my own mind. What am I trying to accomplish at the time? And where do I want to go? So for example, keto is great, but it's not a long-term solution. It's something that you can do for a period of time. And it was something that Dorie said that resonated with me about the phases and the cycles, because I always say to my clients that patience is a virtue, but it is not a finite virtue, meaning it's a finite virtue. It's not something that you can do infinitely. So you can do raw foods for a period. You can do cooked foods for a period, but you can't do everything 100% for the rest of your time. So the key is, what are you trying to accomplish, and what combination of tools, because all of these are tools. Veganism is a tool. Like I know people that they go in and out of between vegan and vegetarian and a combination of Mediterranean. It just depends. You want to keep it interesting. You want to be consistent with your values. So a person who, has a moral position against eating animals. That's kind of like what I call a spiritual disposition. So theirs is going to be a little bit more narrow than someone who still doesn't mind eating eggs, but wants to, dabble in and out of it. So it's some combination of things. And what I tend to do is keep people on a cycle where you keep things fresh. So I do what I call a 3-day reboot with Divinity Soup. So every 30 days, I get women to take the first 3 days. I say women, but it could be men and women. My clients tend to be women. But every first 3 days, I tell my clients to do something very simple. Detoxify your body, refresh your taste buds, and find a way to reacclimate yourself to your goals. And what people tend to do is say at the beginning of the year, I'm going to lose 100 pounds and I'm going to keep it off. And then by the end of January, they've completely forgotten everything that they said, right? So I think the solution to that is to work on a cyclical basis in short term. So if you decided to do it quarterly and reassess your goals, or even monthly, which I have found during the pandemic to be more conducive for me, is okay, every 30 days, I'm going to reset my taste buds. I'm going to do what I call something called Reestablish food humility. Which is basically something that happens when people get food arrogance. So my solution to food arrogance is food humility. And doing my cycle every 30 days allows me to get back to that place where I don't need to have Italian today, Chinese tomorrow, Ethiopian on the next day, right? There's food in my refrigerator or food in your refrigerator that could satisfy your needs, but you become so arrogant about food that you think that you have to have so much variety. And so doing that 12-month cycle of eating and reassessing your goals and your health goals and realigning your taste buds allows you to come right back to your center and say, I'm so blessed to have this food. I'm going to eat what I have in my refrigerator. So yes, veganism, intermittent fasting, doing, whatever your goal is, there's some ways that you can work around it as long as they're realistic, they're short term, and you have a way of assessing the success of it. And that's really just about collecting data. And I think doing that every 30 days is a great way to do it. So I'm not opposed to diets, but I think I like to call it a lifestyle assessment as opposed to diet. I just think the term diet is kind of a negative connotation. If you think about what it is you're trying to accomplish with food, with your body, and how does that align with you fulfilling your purpose in life, then everything else seems to fall in line. And that's more of a lifestyle than it is a diet.
All right. How can people get in touch with you if they want to get more information about your vegan transformation?
My website is SheilaBrownSpeaks.com. I am on Instagram and Facebook, but I lean more heavily towards Instagram. So that's the quickest way to reach me. And my handle is at Sheila Brown Speaks. And that's SHEILA Brown Speaks.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. You've given me so much information. My head is spinning about this, but I want to read your book and learn even more about this, because all of us busy business owners can do better with our food. I'm pretty sure all of us can do more. So I want to bring all three of my guests back right now. So I'm going to invite Dorie Clark to come back. I'm going to invite my friend Andy Seeley to come back. And Sheila, you're here. And we're going to have a quick panel that I call Hit It or Quit It. All right. So the whole point of this, I'm going to ask all three of you the same question. You only have 30 seconds to answer, and you can't repeat somebody else's answer. All right. So Dorie, since you've been waiting the longest, we're coming to you first for this first question. Then we'll go to you, Andy, and then you, Sheila. And then I'll tell you guys the order for each one. So first question, what is your favorite podcast? Dorie, what is your favorite podcast?
My favorite podcast, of course, besides yours, Melinda, is Marketing Secrets by Russell Brunson.
I like his podcast too. I like his. All right, Andy, what's your favorite podcast?
Well, very similar answer to Dorie, but I actually like long-winded, long discussions, and I really enjoy Joe Rogan. I really do.
I knew you were going to say Joe Rogan when you started that. A lot of people on this show have said that. All right, Sheila, what's your favorite podcast?
Well, I love your podcast. And aside from yours, I love Uriel's podcast. She is a great show for spiritual entrepreneurs.
Awesome. I've heard of her podcast too. I like her podcast. All right. Next question. I'm going to come to you, Andy, first, then you, Sheila, and then Dorie, you're going to get this one last. What is your favorite business app?
My favorite business app. Gosh, I don't use a lot of business apps on my phone. If you were talking about a phone app, if we're talking about a online SaaS type app, I would say Watergraph. I don't know if you've heard of Watergraph. Watergraph.
Okay.
It sounds really stupid to say that, but it's a wonderful reporting system that allows you to just do the reporting that the client wants and focus on the things that they need. If we're talking about phone apps, I love Facebook and Instagram.
All right, now you're stealing stuff from other people, I think. All right, but
No, you just gave 4 answers.
All right, Sheila and Dorie. I hope y'all got some other ones. Sheila, what's your favorite app?
I'll say Calendly to help you schedule your appointments and things like that. It's pretty cool.
That's a good one. All right, Dorie, what's your favorite app?
I feel like all I do is like write contracts and sign contracts. So I use TurboScan, which is a scanning app so that I don't actually have to have a big scanner like you did 10 years ago.
Love it. That's actually one I haven't heard of. So TurboScan. All right. Love it. All right. Next question. This one, I'm coming to you, Sheila, first, you, Dorie, second, and Andy, you third. What is your favorite old school marketing tip? I
don't know how popular it is, but I guess it's kind of like do what you can and allow the chips to fall where they may.
Okay.
I don't know who's responsible for saying that.
We'll go with it. I'll take it. We'll just say anonymous. How about that? All right. All right, Dorie, what's your favorite old school marketing tip?
Well, just like you, Melinda, I'm in the thick of book promotion right now for the long game. So the way I'm kicking it old school, I literally have an Excel spreadsheet of people that I know, and I call it people who can help with the book. And so over the past year, I've been keeping this spreadsheet. And every time I think of a person that remotely could help with a book, I put them in it. And then I write down how they can help. Maybe it's an Amazon review, maybe it's social media, maybe they have an email list, but I have been and am continuing to just email people through this Excel file to mobilize help.
Listen, Excel spreadsheets is an old school marketing tip for sure. All right, Andy, old school marketing tip. What do you got?
An old school marketing tip that still works to this day, doesn't matter what technology there is out there, is be thoughtful of the audience and speak to them.
Right. Know your audience. Right. Love it. All right. So my favorite old school marketing tip is write a handwritten note. Everybody send an email. Send a note. That's my favorite one. All right, last question, guys. Dorie, I'm coming back to you first for this, and then I'm coming to you, Andy, and then Sheila, you last. What is your favorite business book? Like the best business book you've ever read? Not the one you're reading this week. What's one of the best business books you've ever read?
For me, the OG business book is Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion by Robert Cialdini.
Good one. All right, Andy, what do you got?
Profit First. I love that book.
So Mike McAlowitz and I went to college together. I've known him for forever. That is absolutely a great, great book. All right, Sheila, what's your favorite business book?
This is going to sound weird because I'm always referencing this as an attorney, but it's called The Complete Executor's Guide. And it's just like a lawyer kind of thing, like for helping people with their estate planning and stuff. I'm always referring to that book.
Listen, I'm not mad. Whatever works. My favorite business book is one I read 2 years ago in the middle of the pandemic. Disrupt You by Jay Samit is one of my very favorite books. I have many, but that's one of mine that I'm super referring to people right now. Listen, thank you guys so much. You guys have been such awesome guests. Dorie Clark, everyone grab her new book, The Long Game. Check out Andy Seeley and his firm, creativelydisruptive.com. And if you want to reach healthy eating coach Sheila Brown, head over to SheilaBrownSpeaks.com. Thank you all for joining me for this episode of the Small Biz Chat podcast. If you're still working on your digital pivot, be sure to grab my new book, Become Your Own Boss in 12 Months, revised and expanded. I've got all of the great stuff in there that you need, like how to sell on Amazon, how to buy ads, and how to develop a sales process. You can get your copy today. Head over to BecomeYourOwnBossBook.com. And I've got some amazing bonuses over there. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Small Biz Chat podcast. The mission of Small Biz Chat is to end small business failure. I'm Melinda Emerson, Small Biz Lady, your host. Until next time, remember this: you never lose in business. Either you win or you learn. Good night, everybody.